It's Thursday evening, 6:47 p.m., and you're sitting in your car in the driveway. The engine is off. The house is right there 15 feet away. But you can't quite bring yourself to go inside yet. You've been awake since 6:15 this morning, spent 9 hours at the office, and another hour and 10 minutes in traffic. Your shoulders ache. Your jaw is tight from clenching it during that budget meeting. And now you're just sitting here, staring at nothing, trying to find the energy to walk through your own front door and be present for the people waiting for you inside. This isn't burnout, not yet anyway. This is just Thursday. This is normal. And somewhere in the back of your mind, beneath the exhaustion, there's a quiet question you keep pushing away. I make decent money. Why does it still feel like I'm barely surviving? My name is William, and I've spent years studying a phenomenon that most people sense but can't quite articulate: the gap between what we think we earn and what we actually earn. Not the difference between gross and net pay. Everyone understands taxes. I'm talking about something deeper and more insidious: the hidden deductions that nobody discusses. The invisible costs embedded in the structure of employment itself. Today, we're not talking about negotiating raises or optimizing your 401k. We're talking about why your $30 per hour job might actually be paying you closer to $4 per hour once we account for the real costs, and why understanding this changes everything about how you make decisions. Here's the foundational assumption built into modern employment culture: your value is determined by your salary. If you earn $62,000 annually, that's roughly $30 per hour based on a 40-hour work week. That sounds respectable. Middle class. The kind of number that should provide comfortable living. We anchor our entire sense of financial well-being to this figure. We make housing decisions based on it. We finance vehicles based on it. We judge our career progress based on it. But this number is fundamentally misleading because it only represents revenue. In any business analysis, you'd never evaluate performance based solely on revenue. You'd calculate profit revenue minus the costs required to generate that revenue. Yet when it comes to our own labor, we treat ourselves like businesses that don't track expenses. We only look at the top line while ignoring the fact that generating that income costs us money, costs us time, and costs us pieces of ourselves that we can't even quantify. There's an accounting principle that applies to every business transaction: cost of goods sold. If you manufacture chairs and sell them for $100 each, but the wood, labor, and overhead cost you $95 per chair, you're not making $100, you're making $5. The revenue number is meaningless without understanding the cost structure. Your labor is no different. You are the product. Your employer is the customer. And the cost of producing and delivering that product, your time, your energy, your attention, is far higher than anyone has taught you to calculate. Let me walk you through the forensic audit most people never perform. Let's examine someone we'll call Sarah. Sarah earns $62,000 annually in a marketing role. That's $30 per hour based on 2,080 working hours per year. Sounds reasonable, but let's start deducting the actual costs of generating that income. First, taxes. Everyone understands this one: federal income tax, state income tax where applicable, Social Security, Medicare. Depending on her filing status and location, Sarah's taking home roughly $46,500 after all tax obligations. That $30 per hour just became $22.35. But we're just getting started. Transportation costs? Sarah drives 35 minutes each way to her office. That's 70 minutes daily, roughly 290 hours annually spent commuting. Her vehicle costs $425 monthly for the payment, $135 for insurance, roughly $180 in fuel monthly for the commute specifically, plus accelerated maintenance oil changes every 3 months instead of every 6, tires wearing faster, higher depreciation. Annual transportation costs directly attributable to this job, $9,500. Her net income just dropped to $37,000. We're down to $17.78 per hour. Professional wardrobe and appearance. Sarah's office is business casual. She needs appropriate clothing, dry cleaning, professional footwear that gets replaced more frequently because she's walking on concrete and carpet instead of living in comfortable clothes at home. Hair maintenance, makeup for professional appearance, the bag she carries. Conservative estimate, $1,800 annually. Net income now, $35,200. Hourly rate, $16.92. But now we get to the category that nobody talks about, what I call maintenance costs. These are expenses Sarah incurs specifically because she's employed in this way, not expenses she'd have if she worked from home or had a different arrangement. Lunch is purchased because she forgot to pack or didn't have time. Coffee bought because she needs it to function during afternoon meetings. The occasional breakfast sandwich because she overslept and couldn't eat at home. These aren't indulgences, they're costs of being a functioning employee. She's spending roughly $40 per week, $2,080 annually, net income $33,120, hourly rate $15.92. Then there's decompression spending. This is the darkest category and the one most people refuse to acknowledge. Sarah is exhausted by Friday. She orders delivery instead of cooking $50. She buys a bottle of wine to unwind $18. She impulse purchases something online Saturday morning while scrolling in bed because she needs the dopamine hit that her job depletes all week. She books a weekend trip every few months because she desperately needs to get away from the life her job has created. She's spending money to recover from the damage her work inflicts. Conservative estimate, $3,600 annually. Net income, $29,520. Hourly rate, $14.19. But here's where the analysis becomes truly uncomfortable. We've been calculating based on 2,080 hours, 40 hours per week for 52 weeks. But that's not Sarah's actual time investment. Let's account for the real hours her job consumes. She wakes at 6:00 a.m. to shower, dress professionally, apply makeup, pack lunch when she remembers. That's 45 minutes of preparation that exists solely for employment. She leaves at 7:30 for her 35-minute commute, but traffic means it's often 45 minutes. She arrives at 8:15, makes coffee, chats with colleagues, settles in. She's at work from 8:30 to 5:39 hours, including lunch, which she can't really use for herself because she's physically trapped at the office. She commutes home another 45 minutes in evening traffic. She arrives home at 6:15 p.m., but she's not done. She spends 20 minutes decompressing, scrolling her phone, venting to her partner, staring blankly before she can engage with her actual life. She checks email once more before bed. She spends Sunday evening with ambient anxiety about Monday morning, which steals 2 hours of her weekend. When you add the preparation, commute, trapped lunch hour, decompression, and evening email checking, Sarah isn't working 40 hours weekly. She's dedicating 52.5 hours weekly to her employment. That's 2,730 hours annually. Now let's recalculate. Net income of $29,520 divided by 2,730 actual hours committed equals $10.81 per hour. Sarah's $30 per hour job pays her $10.81 per hour, but even that's not the complete picture because we haven't accounted for opportunity cost, what Sarah could be doing with those additional 12.5 hours per week if her job didn't consume them. She could be building a side business. She could be learning skills that would increase her earning potential. She could be doing the deep work that would position her for better opportunities. Instead, those hours are just consumed. They generate nothing. They're spent on highways and in elevators and in meetings about meetings. When you add opportunity cost, the conservative value of 650 additional hours annually, that could be generating even $15 per hour of side income. That's $9,750 in foregone earnings. If we subtract that from her effective income, we're down to $19,770. Divide by 2,730 hours, and Sarah is making $7.24 per hour. Her $62,000 salary, her $30 per hour job, pays her $7.24 per hour when you account for all costs and all hours. Think about that. Sarah has a college degree, she's a professional, she's doing everything right according to conventional career advice, and she's making less per hour than the cashier at the grocery store who lives 3 blocks from work and leaves the job at the job. This isn't about Sarah making poor decisions. This is about the structure of modern employment systematically extracting value from workers in ways that don't appear on any pay stub. The system relies on you looking at gross salary while ignoring cost of goods sold. It relies on you counting the 40 hours on your timesheet while ignoring the 52.5 hours your job actually claims from your life. Here's why this matters beyond just being depressing math. Once you understand your real hourly wage, your entire relationship with money changes. It creates what I call cost consciousness in time units, the ability to translate any purchase into hours of your life. Sarah sees a jacket she likes, $180. Pre-analysis, she thinks, that's not bad, I can afford that. Post-analysis, she thinks that's 24.8 hours of my actual life. That's 3 full days of commuting, meetings I don't care about, emails that don't matter. That's 3 days of my finite existence. Is this jacket worth 3 days? This framework creates friction in purchasing decisions, healthy friction that prevents the automatic spending that keeps people trapped. That $8 lunch doesn't feel like $8 anymore. It feels like 1.1 hours of sitting in traffic. That $45 delivery meal on Friday night is 6.2 hours of your life. The $120 monthly car payment upgrade is 16.5 hours every single month in perpetuity. But here's where it gets transformative. This same analysis reveals which expenses are worth it and which are robbing you. That $400 mattress upgrade that gives you better sleep so you wake up less exhausted, that might be reducing your decompression costs and improving your actual quality of life per hour invested. That's 55 hours of work, but it might be buying you back 2 hours per week in reduced exhaustion for the next 5 years, 520 hours total. It's a positive trade. The $3,500 used car that cuts your commute from 35 minutes to 12 minutes by allowing you to live closer to work? That's 482 hours of work up front, but it's buying you back 191 hours per year. It pays for itself in 2.5 years and then generates pure time profit forever after. This is how you start thinking when you understand real hourly wage. You stop thinking like a consumer responding to marketing. You start thinking like an investor analyzing return on investment, where the asset is your time and the return is measured in freedom. Let me show you the threshold that changes everything. There's a specific configuration where this equation transforms, where you cross from negative to positive margin, from selling your life at a loss to actually building equity in your own existence. It happens when you engineer your life such that employment-related costs consume less than 25% of net income and employment-related time doesn't exceed contracted hours by more than 15%. For Sarah, here's what that would look like. She negotiates remote work 3 days per week. Immediately, her commute drops from 290 hours annually to 116 hours. She just bought back 174 hours. Her transportation costs drop from $9,500 to $4,200. She just increased her effective income by $5,300. She's eating lunch at home 60% of the time, reducing that $2,080 annual cost to $850. She's less exhausted because she's not commuting, so decompression spending drops from $3,600 to $1,800. New calculation: $46,500 take home minus $4,200, transportation minus $1,800, wardrobe minus $850, lunches minus $1,800. Decompression equals $37,850 net effective income. Her time investment drops from 2,730 hours to 2,240 hours because she's eliminated 174 hours of commuting and roughly 90 hours of preparation time on remote days. Her real hourly wage just jumped from $7.24 to $16.90. She more than doubled her actual earnings without her employer paying her a single additional dollar. This is the invisible leverage that almost nobody uses. We focus on negotiating salary increases an extra $3,000 annually, before taxes maybe $2,200 net. Meanwhile, negotiating work from home 3 days per week just generated $8,330 in additional effective income through reduced costs plus roughly 260 hours returned to her life. The time alone, valued at even $15 per hour, is worth $3,900. Total value created, $12,230. That's equivalent to a $16,500 raise, except it's better because it's not taxed and it comes with more time. This is where the identity shift occurs. You stop being an employee who accepts the terms of employment as given. You become an optimizer who engineers the structure of work to maximize margin. You're no longer asking, what salary can I get? You're asking, what's my real hourly wage after all costs, and how do I maximize that number? This changes every career decision. That promotion that adds $8,000 to your salary but requires you to manage a team, which means evening emails and weekend stress and arriving earlier for leadership meetings. Let's do the math. $8,000 additional gross is roughly $5,600 net, but the time commitment increases by 8 hours weekly, 416 hours annually. Your decompression spending increases by $1,200 because the stress is higher. Your wardrobe costs increase $400 because you need to dress more professionally. Net benefit, $4,000, divided by 416 additional hours, $9.62 per hour for the marginal time invested. If your current real hourly wage is $12, this promotion actually decreases your effective earnings per hour. You'd be working more for less per hour. From a time value perspective, this is a pay cut disguised as a raise. The optimizer declines it or negotiates different terms. The conventional employee takes it and wonders why they feel more trapped despite making more money. Let me show you what this looks like over time. Sarah implements these optimizations. Her real hourly wage increases from $7.24 to $16.90. She's earning the same salary, but keeping 133% more per hour actually worked. She takes that efficiency gain and instead of spending it, she invests it. That $8,330 annual gain, invested at 7% returns, becomes $106,000 over a decade. But more importantly, she has 260 hours annually returned to her life. She uses 100 of those hours to build skills in data analytics through online courses. Within 18 months, she switches to a fully remote position paying $74,000. Same calculation approach. $53,700 take home, minus $1,800 transportation for occasional travel, minus $900 wardrobe, minus $400 lunches, minus $800 decompression spending equals $50,600 effective net income. Time invested, 2,080 contracted hours plus 80 hours for occasional travel and preparation, 2,160 hours total. Real hourly wage, $23.42. She went from $7.24 per hour to $23.42 per hour, a 223% increase in real earnings with a nominal salary increase of only 19%. The difference is entirely structural optimization. She designed her work life to minimize costs and time leakage while maximizing compensation for actual hours invested. Here's what opportunities look like from this position versus what employment feels like in the conventional high-friction model. In the conventional model, Sarah's boss emails at 7:00 p.m., asking for something by tomorrow morning. She can't say no because she needs this job desperately. She's trapped by car payments and rent and credit card debt that she accumulated, trying to make the conventional model tolerable. She stays up until midnight doing work she's not being paid for because refusing would risk the income she desperately needs. In the optimized model, Sarah's boss makes the same request. She evaluates it differently. Her real hourly wage is $23.42. This task will take 2 hours. Is her employer paying $46.84 for this after-hours work? No. So she politely declines, citing personal commitments. If the boss insists, she negotiates comp time or additional pay. If the boss retaliates, she can walk away because she's been investing her efficiency gains. She has 6 months of expenses saved. She has skills that are marketable because she invested that return time in development. Her posture in every interaction is completely different because she's not desperate. This is the career power shift that happens when you understand and optimize real hourly wage. You negotiate from abundance instead of scarcity. You can demand remote work, flexible hours, compressed work weeks, or additional compensation because you understand the actual math of what you're selling. Most employees don't understand what they're selling, so they accept the employer's valuation. You understand precisely what your time costs to produce and deliver, so you can negotiate from information advantage. Here's the warning that people need but rarely receive. When you first optimize and see your real hourly wage increase dramatically, you'll feel wealthy. You've just gone from $7.24 per hour to $16.90 per hour without changing jobs. That feels like abundance. Your brain, accustomed to the conventional friction model, will interpret this efficiency as surplus to be consumed. This is the self-sabotage moment. You'll think, I've optimized, I can afford to relax now, I can upgrade the apartment, I can lease a nicer car, I've earned this. And if you make that choice, you'll reintroduce the exact costs you just eliminated. You'll move to a more expensive apartment that's further from work, eliminating the commute savings. You'll lease a car with a $380 payment instead of keeping your paid-off vehicle. Within 6 months, your real hourly wage drops back down because your cost structure expanded to absorb the efficiency gains. I've watched this happen repeatedly. Someone optimizes their work life, reduces costs, increases effective earnings, and immediately treats the gain as disposable income rather than structural improvement to be protected. They go from $7.24 per hour to $16.90 per hour and back to $9.50 per hour within a year because they inflated their lifestyle. The optimization isn't a reward, it's a foundation. Every dollar you don't spend on employment costs is a dollar that can be invested in actual freedom. Every hour you buy back from commuting and decompression is an hour that can be deployed toward building skills or businesses or investments that compound. The efficiency gain is the seed, not the harvest. Consuming it destroys the future it could have created. Let me reframe this in terms of opportunity cost to make it visceral. Sarah is making $7.24 per hour in the conventional model. She decides she deserves a nicer apartment $400 more per month. That's $4,800 annually. At her real hourly wage, that's 663 hours of her life annually. That's 82 full workdays. She's trading 82 days of commuting, meetings, and emails she doesn't care about for a slightly nicer living room she's barely in because she's always at work. Alternatively, if she keeps the modest apartment and invests that $4,800 annually at 7% returns for 30 years, that's $456,000. She's not choosing between $400 monthly and nothing. She's choosing between a nicer apartment now and $456,000 in 3 decades. She's choosing between a slightly better living room and 2.4 years of complete financial freedom at age 60. The trade-off, when you understand real hourly wage, becomes impossible to ignore. That's the point. This analysis creates healthy friction that prevents automatic consumption. It forces you to confront what you're actually trading, not money, but pieces of your finite life. Here's what this approach has meant for people I've watched implement it. There's a man I know who was earning $58,000 as an accountant with a brutal 50-minute commute each way. He calculated his real hourly wage at $8.30 per hour. He negotiated a 4-day work week at 85% salary, $49,300. His nominal pay dropped, but his time investment dropped from 2,680 hours to 2,020 hours. His transportation costs dropped from $8,800 to $7,040. His decompression spending dropped from $4,200 to $2,100 because he had 3-day weekends to actually rest. New calculation: $35,700, net income minus $7,040, transportation minus $1,600, wardrobe minus $1,200, lunches minus $2,100. Decompression equals $23,760 effective income, divided by 2,020 hours, $11.76 per hour. He took a salary cut and increased his real hourly wage by 42%, plus he got 660 hours per year of his life back. He used those hours to start a bookkeeping side business that generated $18,000 annually within 2 years. His total real hourly wage is now $16.67 when you include the side business income. He nearly doubled his actual earnings by taking a 15% salary cut and optimizing structure. This is what becomes possible when you stop optimizing for nominal salary and start optimizing for real hourly wage. You make decisions that look counterintuitive to conventional career advice, but that mathematically maximize your actual earnings and freedom. If you internalize nothing else, understand this: your salary is not your value. Your salary minus costs divided by actual time invested is your value. And that number is almost certainly far lower than you think, but that's not cause for despair, it's cause for action. Because once you see the real number, you can optimize it. You can negotiate remote work. You can move closer to your office. You can reduce decompression spending by addressing the root cause exhaustion from inefficient work structure rather than treating symptoms with consumption. You can decline promotions that decrease your real hourly wage. You can switch to roles that pay less nominally but cost less to perform. You can build side income in your returned hours. The system relies on you never doing this calculation. It relies on you anchoring to gross salary and feeling good about that number while quietly spending 60% of it on the cost of earning it. It relies on you counting 40 hours on your timesheet while your job actually consumes 52 hours of your week. It relies on you being too exhausted to notice the discrepancy, but now you notice. And noticing changes everything. This weekend, do the audit. Calculate your transportation costs. Estimate your taxes. Be honest about decompression spending. That's the one people lie to themselves about most. Track your actual time investment for 1 week, including preparation, commute, decompression, and off-hours work. Calculate your real hourly wage and write it down. Then look at every purchase you make next week through that lens. That $60 restaurant meal is X hours of your life. That $200 jacket is Y hours of sitting in traffic. That $30,000 car upgrade is Z hours of meetings you don't care about. Make the trade-offs conscious instead of automatic. The gap between what you earn and what you keep, that's where your freedom lives. The gap between contracted hours and actual hours consumed, that's where your life is being stolen. Engineer your work life to widen the first gap and narrow the second gap, and you'll transform from someone who works for money into someone whose money works for them. You can't earn your way out of structural inefficiency. You can only optimize your way out. The raise isn't coming. The promotion might make it worse. The solution is to stop accepting the default terms of employment and start engineering the structure of work to maximize what you actually keep per hour you actually invest. Your real hourly wage is the truth. Everything else is marketing. Calculate it, optimize it, protect it. Your future self, the one who gets to choose how to spend their hours instead of selling them at a loss, is counting on you to start now.